So once again, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm very sorry for that break in transmission, the way we say it on radio. We actually had to do some technical rearrangements here so as to be able to flow properly. I want to call on my brother, Dr. Kachiwaga, to come please talk to us and tell us who he is, his party background, and every other thing. Thank you, sir.
Okay, go ahead. All the way or just introduction? Introduction, okay. Thank you very much. I'm Kachi Steve Waga, Dr. Waga. I am the candidate of the Action Democratic Party, ADP, for the governorship election coming up on November 11th. I hope to be your governor by January 14th, 15th. Thank you very much. Is that what you want, or you want me to go ahead and...
No, it's okay. We also have in the House the representative of the Labour Party. So, sir, could you please move to the podium to tell us who you are?
Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency, good afternoon, sir. My name is Callistus Ihejiagwa, KSJI. I'm a lawyer, a human rights activist, a politician, and the state chairman of Labour Party Imo State. I'm here to most humbly represent the candidate of our great party, and by the special grace of God, the incoming governor of Imo State, distinguished Senator Atan Achonu, who is unavoidably absent. He was scheduled to be here, prepared to be here, but unfortunately, early hours of today, he got an emergency call that needed his attention in Abuja, and he left. So, out of great respect he has for Takeback Niger initiative, he sent us here a very high-powered delegation, myself and also the DG of his campaign organization, Chief Engineer Chime Nzeribe, so that we represent him and other officers of the party. Thank you so much.
A round of applause for the Labour Party. We are moving on now. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with us that you simply cannot shave a man's hair in his absence. We actually meant this to be a debate amongst the candidates. But with what we have now, the debate appears to be a far cry from what we are going to do today. So it's only a matter of respect, and it's only nice for us to now ask the candidates here present and the representatives of the candidates here present to come out, give us their policy statements, and then we'll take it up from there. So, Dr. Kachimwoga, go ahead. You have a microphone by your side there, so you can always use it.
Yeah. I just wanted to be clear on the format. No, not format. Thank you. Maybe I should present. Maybe I should do that. Thank you very much. I believe I have your permission, as I've been directed to sit and talk with you, so I hope you don't feel any disrespect on that. Thank you very much. Yes, like I said, I'm Kachimwaga, and I'm a medical doctor by training. I'm an ICT professional, certified visual engineer. I'm an e-leader, certified. I'm also a lecturer in health informatics, and I am a consultant, public sector consultant by occupation. I have been around, I've had my stints, and in the past couple of decades, I've actually been operating around governments, supporting governments, agencies, federal, state, and even the World Bank. And I have garnered quite some experience, which is what prompts me to come and say that I want to transfer some of these experiences and even successes to Imo. Our state is in their streets. Our state, in my own thinking, has never had it so bad. And our state cannot continue the way it is going. I see nothing ahead for the state the way we are going. It's not politics. It's about human lives. It's about our future. It's about our children. It's beyond Kachimwoga and who becomes and the governorship. It's about our destination, our future as Imo people. And it's a very serious matter. And that's why I've taken the personal risk, myself and my family, at grave financial and otherwise inconvenience to offer myself to Imo State. Our problems, as challenging as they are not insurmountable. There are solutions to Imo's situation as it is. And I have been part of providing such solutions in other places. And so I know that it is possible. I know it is possible to secure Imo State. I know it is possible to secure Imo State because Imo cannot be secure when you have strange persons running securities in the localities. It has never worked anywhere. It has always caused more problem. So what is happening here shouldn't surprise anybody. But it can be fixed by restoring the homegrown security, which at least has worked in Imo State before, and which, by the way, is working in other places. So the homegrown security is a simple, basic, commonsensical solution to our security challenges. And in the homegrown security, you are going to have the people, I mean, I keep saying it, there's no locality that, our localities are such that if a chicken is missing, somebody will tell you this is the man who took it. So we know ourselves, and that's the starting point of security. So with an understanding of the home and the right people at home, they will make things work. Just across here in River State, you have Ospok. How did it suddenly come from everything totally wrecked to suddenly now, a lot of places sanity has returned? It's homegrown security. They know themselves. In fact, at some point, they went around picking out their own fellows who had refused to repent. So these things work. Now, your job at the center is what? Give training, equip, give support, provide reinforcement when needed, provide the necessary intelligence, coordination, communication, because different localities are involved and you are now coordinating between the localities. So if there's a threat coming from locality A, you even pre-warn B and say this is coming. And if they need reinforcement, you bring C and say go and join them because you can prevent this threat from escalating beyond here. Simple. So unfortunately, I don't know why we have had to lose so much blood up to now without coming home to deal with this matter the way it should. And I will tell you this, as a chief executive, the last thing I will ever do is to outsource being the chief security officer. Because when I hear a chief executive say, Mr. A is responsible for insecurity, Mr. B is responsible. You have simply abdicated your responsibility. You're no longer responsible. If anybody is responsible for insecurity, it means the person has become responsible for security as well. So I must take every responsibility for any insecurity and for any security. That is my job as your governor. So when I take responsibility, I deal with it. It means that if it fails, I have failed. But so long as you're busy pointing our fingers at everybody else, it means you can keep failing and you're not responsible. That's why we are where we are. So I'll leave it at that because there's more to say, but I'll keep sounding a note of warning to anybody because anybody can become governor and people must know this. For those who still think that there is some organized agitation involved in the insecurity of Imo State, those people are living in the moon. They don't live here. They don't know where we are. That has long since disappeared. Pure criminality took over the state using these loopholes we created. And it will keep happening. And I'll just, before I close on that security, I'll tell you what, right next door in Abia here, there was a program that moved Abia from Aba being one of the worst places. Aba was known as the IPOB headquarters, with all due respect. Today, there's no sit at home in Oma here. Nobody gets killed just like that. At least I know the whole of 2022, nobody was killed. While Imo was busy so hot, just next door. What was that program? Yours truly was a part of that program. Yours truly was a part of creating, designing, and running that program that ended up absorbing 1,238 gentlemen from the same streets where there would have been a problem to become the same people now as gentlemen running government revenues, generating as much as 1.4 billion for the state, converting what you thought was a nuisance into an asset. And that's what governance is all about. So our problems, like I say, are certainly not insurmountable. Now, I have 4 focal areas that I say with these areas we can capture so many other areas. All the areas are very important, but I said 4 focal areas, and that was security, education, jobs, and health. Education, like I said, Imo State, unfortunately, is still subjecting herself to what you call the national curriculum. For some reason, I don't know why we have not understood that the national curriculum is a minimum standard. That's not the standard. You can't become the best by adopting and following religiously a minimum standard. No, that minimum standard, we've long passed that. We're supposed to by now have a curriculum far more advanced than the national curriculum. But somehow we're not even talking about it, we're not discussing it. And other countries, even around us, Republic of Benin and Ghana, have moved beyond those standards that the colonial masters set for them, which is what we are still trying to follow. And we just somehow are not able to rise above all of this. And we don't understand that once you don't get your education right, you will keep having this issue of unemployment, you keep having all these issues. Education is key, is the underbelly of getting all of these things, in the right perspective and getting them solved. You can't finish secondary school in Ghana, for instance, you can't solder wire. Because you've gone through that education, there's a practical aspect of education. Nigeria said they were going to adopt it when you do the 6334 system. Unfortunately, we just glorified, stretched it, watered down the curriculum, stretched it by 1 year, added almost nothing at the end of the day. In fact, removed some things at the end of the day. So Imo can't be operating at that level. So my job as a governor is to bring the proper curriculum to Imo State because we have the heads. We have the people that can execute it, that can learn it, and can implement it. And that is what will take us above everybody, so that we can have proper education that prepares you for the world you are in today. Knowing the longest river in Africa doesn't prepare you for the world you are in today. You can simply Google it and get it. I keep saying it. But what are the challenges you face today in your place? How is your learning helping you to solve those problems? You would expect that if we have the right curriculum all the way to tertiary, this place should be hosting one of the biggest centers for solar research and solar panel manufacturing in the whole world. We have all the sun. But I keep saying it, we end up importing solar panels from countries that have no sun. So why? Their education has gone beyond even their own needs to solving other people's needs. And our own is still busy, not able to grapple with our own basic needs. You have water here, we don't have water running away. We have all this. It doesn't occur to us that all of these things are basic factors that we can do, and do, incremental things you do in education that you can end up having all the units required to solve your problem. That's what education is supposed to do for us. So we're going to reward the education in terms of the learning itself. That's one, which is the curriculum, the learning. And then we're going to have the skill acquisition component of the education, essential. That must be well catered for. And by the way, when you're talking of things like technical schools, in Imo State, we still do technical education without oil and gas, without ICT. And we're saying we're doing technical education. The biggest industry in Nigeria is oil and gas. It's not in our technical education. The money spinner in the world today is ICT. It's not in our technical education. So what are we preparing our people for? What is the technical education preparing you for? So these are the things that we must fix in education. I understand these things. Until this contest started, I was the state chairman of the Parent-Teacher Association in Imo State. We tried so hard to get the attention of the government. Unfortunately, we couldn't. And we still need to do so, because we must fix public education. And I have said it several times, that I make a promise as a governor, in 12 months, we will enact a law through the assembly that will make it compulsory for public officials to educate their children in public institutions. If you do not send their children to public institutions, you won't even, we have governors that have never entered one public institution, one secondary school. They don't know what happens there. You'll be shocked if I tell you that we didn't have any secondary school that had a toilet. You'll be shocked if I tell you that as of today, there is not one security man paid by the state in any of the secondary schools in Imo State. So all these things are real. You can't know that if you're not part of the system. So these are the things we're going to fix. I'm just trying to take them in little bits and highlights. So these are the things we're going to fix, because if we fix our education, if we get our education right, it means that we have prepared our people to begin to, employ themselves and to be able to do the jobs that are available. And to buttress what I'm telling you, to tell you how real what I'm saying is that despite the absolute employment is about 57%, for 3% regular absolute employment, about 57% unemployment in Imo State. That's a disaster. But guess what? We are still importing labor in Imo State. We're still importing labor. So we have so many people that can't work, and we have so much work that we have to hire people from outside the state to do. And I'm not talking of the higher skilled, high tech and all that. I'm not even going all that way. I'm saying right down to the basics of POP.
Yeah, Dr. Walker, please, I think that's as much as we can take from you for now till we get back to
give
you.
me time to summarize now. So
Thank you very much. Well,
can't repeat like that.
Thank you. That you still have time to do that. Well, while Dr. Wanga was actually trying to get his message across to us, there was a change in pattern as far as the Labour Party representatives are concerned. The chairman who actually was here, who actually introduced himself properly as the chairman of the Labour Party in Imo State, had to swap places with another big oga of Labour Party in Imo State. And that was, he's in the person of our brother Nick Oparandudu, Honorable Nick Oparandudu, who will now be taking up the place of the chairman to talk about Labour Party in their manifesto and every other thing. Iberi, please take it up from there. Bring him in.
Yes, please. Once again, you're welcome, sir. Please would like for you to, number one, properly introduce yourself, and also let us into the policy that you'll be running with.
Okay, my name is Nick Oparandudu. I'm a former banker, a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. I've also served the state in various capacities. I was the chief economic advisor. Incidentally, when I was in that role, Kachi was the technical assistant to the governor, chief technical assistant to the governor. I served in that role as the chief economic advisor. I was also at various times Honorable Commissioner for First Budget and Economic Planning. I was Commissioner for Works and Transport, and I was also Commissioner for Pensions and internal revenue. Well, that's about it. So, about myself. I think I would rather focus on what and how Senator Chauno's administration will change the trajectory of Imo State. For so long, we have been saddled with leadership that is not visionary. And people think they have to occupy the position of governor for reasons other than the interest of the people. I think that is about to change by the time Senator Chauno assumes office. I would like to speak to some of the issues and challenges that face Imo State and how we, as a party, will tackle those challenges. Today, as we speak, the most fundamental, perhaps the greatest challenge facing Imo State is that of security. And if you'll agree with me, nothing can be achieved in terms of economic growth and development if you do not have a secure environment. We have a situation in Imo State where people or some local governments cannot even access their homes. If you go to Osu, it's a deserted, desolate land. If you go to Pastor Oru West, Pastor Oru East, they are all been abandoned by the people owing to insecurity. If you go to Onimo, if you go to Okigwe, and so on. So the first thing that has to be done is to tackle the issue of security. And by the way, this failure to rein in the security challenges in Imo State has also led to a situation where some sectors of the economy are already suffering. Sectors like hospitality and tourism. You would agree with me that years back, by Thursday, it was difficult to get rooms in hotels in Owerri. But as we speak, the level of occupancy is less than 30% for most hotels. And this is very sad. And meanwhile, this is a sector that has been in the vanguard of employing a lot of people, a lot of the indigenous of Imo State, and providing means of livelihood. Now, how do we deal with the issue of security? First of all, everything about security is local. Everything about security is local. You must have a framework that addresses the security challenges from the local level. And what the Chauno administration is going to do is to, first of all, change the way we do policing in Imo State.
Yeah.
Sorry?
So, Nick, I want you to state the things you think are wrong.
Yes.
You have the time to tell us how you're going to correct these wrongs.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
the things that are wrong have already been said. Imo State currently ranks as one of the most insecure states in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. There is a prevalence of kidnapping. People have abandoned their homes. People have abandoned their businesses. We have sit at home still being enforced in some areas of Imo State. So these are the challenges we face. And I'm saying that what the issues are, what are the solutions we have to these challenges so that we can return Imo State to the secure environment it has always been. And to do so, like I said, security is local. You must do policing or tackle the security challenge from the local governments. And if you look at it, why we've been and where we are is that the local governments in Nigeria, in Imo State, have been left desolate. Nothing goes on in the local governments. Before I go into the prescriptions in terms of what we're going to do, one of the key challenges that has brought us in the situation we find ourselves is the fact that the autonomy of local governments have been muzzled by subsequent or previous administrations, with the result that there's so little happening in the local governments. Under Achikwu Udonwa's administration, under Ike Don Hakem's administration, there was a modicum of activity happening at local government level. People were working at those levels, doing petty jobs, constructing culverts, repairing or rehabilitating schools, and so on and so forth. But what we have seen in Imo State today is that the government has completely, the state government has completely appropriated the resources meant for the local governments. And that is at the root of the level of underdevelopment that we encounter in Imo State. As we speak, every local government in Imo State, and there are 27 of them, they get an average of 100 to 130 million every month. But unfortunately, most of these monies don't get to the local governments. So one of the things we need to do is to take back and recreate the local economy by making sure you restore local government economy, and by so doing, provide the resources that will enable the local governments provide infrastructure and services for the people. Roads will be graded, schools will be repaired or rehabilitated, health centers will be rehabilitated, and so on and so forth. That has to be done. Then, in terms of actual policing, the Achono plan includes an initiative that will make sure that a minimum of 30, because don't forget that the local governments will be paying for these services. We are going to restore or bring back the vigilante system using armed vigilantes in this case. And we will make sure, because as we all know, there is no thief or no rogue in your community, in your ward, that you do not know. So the local people know who are the bad boys. And we are going to empower some of our youths, at the minimum 30, maybe it could be up to 100 in a local government, depending on what the issues are, and get them involved in a local policing system, a local vigilante service that will make sure that at least our local communities are secured. We are going to also re-engage or change our manner of engagement with the security agencies.
Thank you, Mr. Nick. Thank you very much. We'll get to that point now. Dr. Morgan, now having said all you did say concerning your manifesto, the things you are going to do for Imo State, or what you have in mind for Imo State, I will want to, first of all, let me be the first to ask this question. Give us a slight breakdown of what you will do in the area, because every other person seems to be hammering on security. We all understand that it's not as if Imo State is without problems. We know there are problems. So now, because none of you has even said anything concerning agriculture. Dr. Mukachi, what will you do in the area of agriculture to at least, or what do you intend to do in the area of agriculture to make things, at least food, available to Imolites?
Okay, thank you. Well, you cut me short, so I couldn't have said all of that. But I'm glad you've given me a chance to say that again. Yes, and I'll try to be precise on it. Now, agriculture, what you do, just like even in a business, you build on your strengths, all right? That's what you do. So on the areas that we have strength is where we'll focus on our agriculture. What will our strength be? A lot of us do not know, and I keep saying I'm preaching it, that palm oil is more expensive than crude oil. If crude oil is doing all of this to Nigeria, you can imagine what palm oil will do to us if we understand it and we harness it. So Imo State is in a position to harness palm oil. In sometime 30-something years ago, or 40 years ago, thereabouts, or more, there was an adder palm. Now, you may not know that adder palm, what you're seeing there is just about 4,500 hectares planted. Then, that 40, 50 years ago, as the case may be, out of 10,000 hectares that was acquired for adder palm. Nobody has planted any other thing in the remaining 5,500 hectares, or even acquired more, as it is. These are lacuna. These are just the gaps that a government can fill very quickly. First is to plant all that is plantable, to realize what you have, and then acquire more, and of course distribute the right seedlings. But there is something you need to know. Why is adder palm not having challenges in the place where it is? Because of the way we handle land and the affinity of the Igbo man to land. But we can convert all of that to asset again. Why? Things that have worked. Same thing that NTC did in Ogun State. The smallholder units. The smallholder units is a way of giving the land back to the owners of the land. What am I giving? I'm giving you back your land more or less. Yes, it's mine. I say, take it, manage it. But what I'm getting from you now is product. If it's fruits, I'm getting fruits from you. And I'm costing your fruits, giving a value to it, and say, for you to produce out of this land I'm giving you back, this is how much I'm paying you. I'm not wasting money. I would have spent more than that policing that land, which I don't need to police anymore. I would have spent more than that planting, tending, paying labor, and all on that land. I'm calculating all that money and giving it back to you. But for you now it's profit because nobody's challenging you in your own home. That's where you are. That's the land you had. Planting and tilling is what you do. So you are now the one making the money out of it. And I'm gaining my bunches. And by the time I'm getting bunches now, I'm able to have my meals properly running. Because right now, there's so much stolen in that place out of the bunches there. Why are you competing with them? But now I'm not competing anymore. I'm paying you for the bunches. So, in fact, if anything, you will steal a bunch somewhere and bring to me because I'm paying. So I'm going to have all the bunches I need, and I'm going to produce enough. I'm just giving an example with the palm, all right? Now, palm I love because palm is something with the modified tenere you have now, 18 months, you can begin to have a yield. And you're getting 60, in fact, now it's above 60 tons per hectare, unlike what you, about 4 times what you used to have before. Unfortunately, all the trees you have in Abakwam now are almost, in fact, used to have about 2 million menopause trees and all that, which can also be used as raw materials for other things. So it's a concatenated program, right, that is using what you have, introducing what is new, changing the land holding system, and because of the way you now do the land holding system, you can now introduce machines and equipment and all that. But we don't need to produce everything in the world. We just need to select a few products that we can maximize and do well in and earn money. Because what are we after at the end of the day? My interest is to earn foreign exchange. That's my first interest, is to earn foreign exchange. All right? But in the process of earning foreign exchange, I'll tell you about two crops, cassava and palm. These are things you're seeing every day. It looks like nothing to you. I've just told you palm oil is more expensive than crude oil. All right? That's how much in it. Now, on the cassava, if we have the right yield of cassava, which is something that everybody in Imo State can plant and yield and we can buy, I can tell you that the products that we can get out of processing cassava, in fact, in the feasibility that I participated in, about 28 products coming out of the cassava plant. The gari itself is like, it can come as a byproduct. You can give out the gari free of charge. Because the value you're getting from all the other products is so much. The gari is coming like the chaff that you can give the people, they can fry at home and eat it. It can become what you can use for CSR. So, which means, and meanwhile, gari is a staple here. So it means that we're going to have plenty of food. It means we're going to have enough to export. Because the resin alone, and I'm sure some of you don't even know we make gunpowder out of the cassava. So the resin alone and other things that will give us a lot of value. So we will change the way land is handled because it will overcome all the security challenges you have and make sure we have the proper yield and products. We will process as well.
Interesting.
Because if you do not process,
yes,
it means that you're selling at below the value that you're going to get. And I am part of a scheme that has licensed a domestic warehouse just next door here in Omaya, which is an a domestic export warehouse. So a terminal licensed by the federal government from which you can export your agricultural products.
Okay,
so
we may have to stop you here now. Just like my colleague said, we have enough time to deliberate on a whole lot of issue or matter. I would like to switch over to you, sir. Of course, we know there are about 27 general hospitals because we've been talking health, and if I hear you correctly, you said delving into the health sector that will make sure that we have hospitals. But we already have 27 abandoned general hospitals in our local governments. Do you have plans, does your party have plans to do anything on that? Or are you going to do something different? Because oftentimes what we see is that when there's a new dispensation or a new leadership, it seems like plans are abandoned and new ones are taken up. So, sir, what do you intend to do with the 27 general hospitals?
Well, I would answer your question, but I thought in terms of organization, it would have been better to take sector by sector what each party would do. You take agriculture, for instance.
You want to talk on agriculture?
Yes, because I think it's a better approach so that people can compare the prescriptions or the solutions that the parties are prescribing.
All right.
No, I'm just saying in terms of organization, it's a lot better that somebody hears about agriculture, He has a director from 2, 3, 4 different sources, and he can compare what the various parties are going to do. Then you go to health, then you go to technology, and so on. That's just a suggestion, but I will answer your question. You know, well, the issue about health, like you know, one of the biggest challenges we have in Imo State, we talk about security all the time, but we forget to recognize the fact that owing to the failure of government, we have created the conditions for insecurity. For every government to holistically tackle the issue of security, you must focus yourself on the Human Development Index, where the state ranks. And essentially, it will require looking at your policies in the area of education and skills acquisition and in the area of health. Unfortunately for us in Imo State, we are lagging behind because the level of investment in the health sector in Imo State is so abysmal that it will be impossible for us to provide Medicare to the level, to the standard that the people would really appreciate. As I speak with you, Imo State has the lowest investment in the health sector of all the 5 southeastern states. The lowest. If you go, there's a report called the State of the State report that talks about investments in different areas or ranked states. Imo State is the least in Imo State, in the southeast. As a matter of fact, by 2021, even 2022, we are investing less than 400 naira per human being. 387 to be precise. Whereas in other states, they were doing 8,000, 9,000, and so on. So if you don't invest in healthcare, you are likely to have the situation you find yourself. So the first thing to do is to prioritize health services by making sure that the level of investment required to make a difference in the provision of affordable healthcare to the people is made. Secondly, the basis for any healthcare system to be effective remains the primary healthcare level. We must do something about the health centers, the dispensaries, and all that we have in all our local communities. We must make them functional. Incidentally, maybe unknown to a lot of people here, Senator John, you remember the last time the governor said he was going to arrest him because of the 774 health center projects. But a fact that has not been made known to the people of Imo State is that Senator John has actually constructed 26 of the 27 health centers under that scheme in this state. All equipped, fully, as agreed under the contract. But the government has refused to even take over those hospitals, all because of politics. So we need to go back to the primary health care level and make sure that our health centers, our dispensaries. My mother was a nurse, and he worked in far-flung places like Omokano, Haji, Uguta, Ilile, and all those places. But the thing I knew was that at that time, and that was in the early 70s, there were very few ailments that they referred to where they could deal with those things at that level because they had a health center system that was working. We have to look at the quality of people. We also have the doctors. We don't have enough doctors. Okay? We don't have, not just that we don't have enough doctors, our healthcare personnel are not properly remunerated. So we need to do something about it. And there have been schemes or programs agreed with or negotiated by the Medical Association of Nigerian Medical Association with the federal government and all that, which are yet to be implemented in Imo State. We need to look at all those areas. And then, you talked about the 27 structures. That's what I call them because they are not actually hospitals. Only about 2 or 3 of them have transited to be in a hospital. Those were, as far as I'm concerned, projects maybe well-intentioned, but very poorly executed. And the issue for me is that if we focus on the primary healthcare system, you will be dealing with the health challenges or healthcare needs of over 80–90% of our people. The health centers will also play their own role. Sorry, the hospitals will also play their own roles. But in the local communities, we must have a situation where somebody needs to go for healthcare. He doesn't need to spend more than maybe 10, 20, 15 minutes accessing healthcare. So, and then we also need to do something, when we talk about healthcare too, we also need to do something about health insurance. The way it's currently being implemented, I doubt if it's the right way. We must make sure that there is an effective health insurance scheme that will provide a cushion for the people so that they can afford health care for themselves and their families. We would even have a system where the local government, because right now the resources of the local governments are being frittered away by the state. Nothing stops the local government from paying the premium on health insurance for the indigents of that local government. That way you are sure that those people can access health care at any point in time. So these are some of the things we are looking at in the area of health.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, I think I'm going to throw your template now. Dr. Ngoga, you heard Mr. Oparandudu and all he said about now, given the opportunity, if you are the governor, what will you do better than what he has just said now?
Okay, thank you. But let me observe that you brought me to debate with my fellow contestants. You didn't let me know I could hire my own Nick, because I would have liked to hire my own Nick to come and do this debate for me. So, be that as it may. So what I'm saying is level the playing ground a bit. But be that as it may, actually, he starts on something which, if you read my manifesto, which I sent to you ahead of this debate, is clearly captured there. You can't talk health without health insurance. You can't. And how we have, excuse my language, goofed this long is what I may not understand. But anybody who knows anything about health knows that you can't talk health without health insurance. So it's clear in my manifesto, and I cried when I learned that our government recently spent $2 billion, or is it $5 billion? I don't know, the palliative. They said they bought rice. They said they bought rice. I just need that $2 billion to do my first enrollment of 100,000 persons to start my comprehensive health insurance. And the people would have had that real palliative. And I would have had $2 billion spent inside my own health system on the capitations. And the hospitals, which would now have local management, because that's what's missing. We have, today, the structure I have is one central health management board in Owerri, managing all the general hospitals in the whole state. So if the roof that was leaking in Mbidi, the man, chief medical director, was sitting there, putting buckets in his office. He can't even fix the roof because it has to be managed from Owerri Health Board. And the studies we did showed Mbidi there, it didn't have Panadol, but they had one large stock of diazepam that they cannot finish prescribing under 20 years. Because somebody in Owerri saw a promo for diazepam and bought it and distributed to the hospitals. That's how they run. So that structure is a criminal structure that has to be, of course, thrown away. Every hospital must have its own local management. Now, with the health insurance guaranteeing funds into that hospital, the hospital management can now manage their funds better, improve the hospitals. So it's not every year you spend money. Let me tell you, you spend money, you build. VAME did it, the federal. All those things they build, where are they now? They're all gone down. But it is a steady supply of money from an effective health insurance system that will keep them knowing that they are going to be receiving this money. They're getting this money based on how many patients are enrolled with them. So they're going to be so nice to the patients that they will get more patients. They are now competing for the patients instead of competing for my allocation. All right? So with that, they can now run their houses. And guess what? They can now even go further. When people like Nick will now come and advise them on their boards, they will now go further and get equipment manufacturers who can now say, now that I have this steady, I can be paying gradually, drop your X-ray machine here, it's going to improve my clientele. we need to improve my clientele, I get more money, I'll be paying you. And the equipment manufacturer will do it because he has seen the health insurance, he has seen the cash flow, and he will be able to drop that. So that is going to radically change the health that we have in Imo State. Every other thing can be built on that, but that is the base upon which you can change your health system.
Thank you very much.
All right, so like we said, it's a fair level playing ground. So let me pass the mic back to you, sir, to talk about our educational sector. Agriculture, sorry. So what are your plans? What do you intend to do differently from what he has said? Thank you.
Okay. Essentially, there are 3 ways to create jobs, recognized and all that. And that's through initiatives in agriculture, in industrialization, in the technology space. If you have the right initiative in all these 3 areas, you'll be creating jobs in the numbers that can productively engage your people. Now, on agriculture, what the Achono plan intends to achieve is to look at those agro products wherein the state has comparative advantage in terms of farming. Kachi has mentioned cassava, there's palm oil, there is a cashew, and so on and so forth. And try to deal with the value addition issues along those crop chains. Because you cannot maximize value unless you have local processing capacity that can take in the products of the agricultural sector. So one of the things we are going to do is we are going to encourage the private sector companies already involved in all these areas to set up facilities here in Imo State. For instance, I'll give you a very simple example. Can you imagine a certain NASCO in Jos coming here to set up a plant, no matter how small? What it does to the agricultural sector in Imo State, that all these people who are doing maize and so on and so forth, all the things that are required to produce the cornflakes and whatever else that NASCO does will be gainfully employed through smallholder farming units, through even subsistence farming by our own women. One of the plans we have is that across the 760-something communities we have in Imo State, we are going to have women cooperatives, we are going to have youth cooperatives. And these cooperatives will be effectively dedicated to farming our local crops. And how do we help them achieve the potentials in these engagements? We are going to help them by making sure that the crops that they farm have off-takers. If you have a Nigerian starch mill setting up a facility here, it will probably take every cassava that you manufacture or you get in Imo State. If you have, there's a friend of mine who has the biggest ethanol plant in Nigeria, and you know where it's situated? It's in Lokoja. He's from Abia State. He's from Ohofia. Okay? He has the biggest ethanol plant. And that ethanol plant in Lokoja has been the source of sustenance for perhaps over 200,000 people who are supplying them cassava. They can't even meet their demand. So what we need to do is to do private sector-led initiatives that will lead to the setting up of processing facilities for various agro chains, and encouraging those people to also have an active interest in these community cooperatives anchored on women, anchored on youths, so that whatever those people are producing have off-takers. If you do that in Imo State with the right policies, I can bet you can put between 300,000 and 400,000 rural people in gainful employment. That is one. Then, if you look at the way our agricultural sector has been run, the agri-extension services are no more there. In those days, in the 70s, in the 60s, in the maybe up to early 80s, we had agri-extension services supporting the rural farmers in all that they are doing. We don't have it anymore. We must go back to the system that will provide that kind of support for our rural farmers. And I can assure you that not just that it will increase productivity, it will enhance even the value that is created in the process. Now, when you also look at, my colleague talked about exports and all of that. Yes, that's a good policy. But I think we will do better if we focused on using our local crops as avenues to create local engagement for our people in the rural areas. You can imagine, I'll tell you another story. Maybe this is real fact. A cousin of mine whose wife works with civil defense here in Owerri, once told me his experience. They farmed vegetables. The wife just made up his mind that he was going to farm vegetables. I come from a village not too far away from here, Emekuku. They got a massive expanse and farmed vegetables. You wouldn't believe it that this woman who works for civil defense, as I speak with you today, over a long period of time, was harvesting his vegetables and going to the relief market over every morning at about 5 o'clock, 5:30. And there was no day he sent his boys or those women to go sell those things that he made less than 40, 50,000 naira. Okay? So these are areas where we can encourage the local population, encourage the local folks to get engaged in agriculture, knowing fully well that there will be off-takers and there will be avenues for them to also sell these products. So essentially, this is what we want to do in the agricultural space. And I believe that if we have a situation where the local processing facilities are there, and you create off-takers for what these local communities, the farm cooperatives and all that will produce, then you'll be providing active engagement for the people in the rural areas.
Thank you very much, my brother. And then, Dr. Moga, there's no gainsaying the fact, I repeat, that IMO, in terms of internally generated revenue, hasn't actually been doing well or doing much. What will you actually do, or how do you see it, and what will you do a lot better to improve the internally generated revenue base of this particular state?
Thank you very much. I am the developer of a concept called LeadSEMS. LeadSEMS is a concept that encompasses the 8 competencies required. Apply it to any revenue, you maximize it. That's one of my creations, and out of the service I have been rendering on such. It's a shame that IMO is doing 20 billion in a year as revenue. It's a very big shame. Nick himself did more than that when he was some years ago. So, but there are a number of issues. One is applying the right systems. That's why I talked about LeadSEMS. Applying systems, technological systems, procedural systems, finance and accounting systems, applying the right systems. Of course, right databases and everything. Applying the right systems will change your whole life of revenue. What we're doing today is like trekking to Lagos. That's what we're doing today in revenue. It's like we're trekking to Lagos. And the worst part is that we're trekking to Lagos. We're not even putting signs, knocking poles on the road to tell the next man, I passed through here. This was a good road. So after trekking 2023, 2024, you come and resume the trek. No map. You just continue again. You may even do worse than you did before. It's horrible that a state with one of the highest literacy rates in Nigeria has to still run the way we are running, you know. But all of that can change, and overnight. I give an example with one simple revenue. The road taxes that were being collected next door here. The entire state never made, in fact, it was 60 million they made in 2019. 60 million. Now, we applied the systems, to it, and in 2021, they made 860 million. In 2022, they made 1.4 billion without increasing a single tax. Just collection of the same due taxes using systems this time. So that's the part. But there is the political angle to it and the political will. That's where a lot of discipline is required from a chief executive. That everything in revenue is the way it is because of vested interests in those areas. And believe it or not, those vested interests play roles in putting people in power. So many chief executives will find it difficult to delve into those areas. That's number one. That's one political problem, which is easy to solve. Because I can tell you that those vested interests, from my own experience and what we have practiced and shown, cannot even make the money they should make when the systems are not there. So it is about letting them understand. For instance, in the state recently, my team, they said, oh, these people here, they have a contract till January, so let them stay to January. And we said, what do they make? Whatever it is, what do they make? They said, oh, they make XYZ. I said, okay, double it, we'll pay them that. Let's go put the systems and let it work. Of course, the systems will make 5-10 times that. So you can afford to double and do a good job. And it's working that way. So it's about, you have to have the political will to confront everybody involved to put the right systems. The next one is also the understanding of a chief executive. I think that we have been feeding on this 3 billion, 4 billion, and then you add the one you steal from the local government to it. You add it, and that looks like money, and you no longer have a drive to go and do what you should do to generate money because our sights are set low. When we do 10 kilometers of road, we come and celebrate it. We celebrate it. We have over the bone. We've done what nobody has ever done before. We need 1,200 kilometers of road to make the first impact. So if you don't set that as your target, you will not go look for revenue to do it. So that's what's happening. You will do 30 kilometers, spend the rest of the money on television and radio, advertising the same 10 kilometers. Maybe I'll bring the president or vice to commission one end today and commission the other end tomorrow of the same 10 kilometers of road. That's what we do. So a chief executive must understand that he needs money. He look at, these are my targets. I must achieve all of this. And that will force him to go harness the existing revenue. We have so much untapped revenue here. And I feel sad, part of the business side, which he knows, is to help assist states to realize their revenue potentials. And unfortunately, I'm helpless in my own state because you just watch all those things go away and nobody even understands what you're talking about. So definitely, if you use the GDP to revenue as a potential, using the lowest index in Nigeria, not even African average, Imo should make no less than 90 billion in a year, at the lowest. But if you use the African average, you're talking about 120 billion or more and all that. So I don't understand how, in fact, if as a governor I cannot generate 10 billion a month, I have failed and I will resign as your governor.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that is one other thing I need to point out. Please, all you do is listen. No applause. When the time comes, you ask questions. That's the only applause you can give to my esteemed candidates and officials right here. Thank you very much. Mr. Parandudu, excuse me. I once read in the newspapers where somebody referred to you as the master generator when it comes to internally generated revenues. You heard all Dr. Woga said. What will you do differently? What will you do differently?
Okay, well, he's talked about an area which needs to be addressed, which is having to automate the revenue collection process. You can't have revenues being collected manually and you expect to make any difference. So there has to be automation all the way. Now, I'll tell you my own experience working in that space in Imo State. When I became the commissioner in charge of this area, I noticed that all across the state, people were chasing individuals. The people, some produce people will mount their checkpoints somewhere in Omapu or somewhere. The people that do sticker, what's it called, the emblem, they do their own. There were so many of them. We had a preponderance of revenue contractors. I did a study, I did a check, and I found out that all the monies being contributed by these revenue contractors to the coffers of Imo State government was less than 100 million naira. All of them. The people who were doing emblem then were doing only 10 million naira. So I went to the governor and I said, look, is 100 million naira enough for us to inconvenience people, keep chasing them around? He didn't pick up, he needed to have whatever, to just collect waste. To the extent that in my own estate today, we pay as much as 10,000 naira a month, and there are at least 1,000 something people in that estate. So what we are going to do in Imo State, and it's all about this state, what we're going to do is that we are going to start with Owerri, Okigwe, and Olo, and divide the entire state, or these three areas, into waste collection districts, and concession them to private contractors. Are you hearing me? Concession them to private contractors who will earn a certain percentage of revenue as remuneration for their services. Then, when you would have done so, for those of us who also know a little bit about circular economy and all of that, we also need to know that waste is also wealth. And it is possible working with private sector operators to set up waste management facilities in Imo State, such that all the plastics you see on our drains, all the compost you find in very close to the Ebu market and all those places are taken out by somebody or people who know that those things could be converted to wealth. And I can assure you that waste collection alone will engage a lot of people. It might interest you to know that in a place like Ghana, if you go to Accra, perhaps the third or fourth richest man in Ghana was a guy that went to Harvard. And when he came back to Ghana, what he did was set up a waste collection system. And he did it by acquiring so many of these keke napeps with special bodies. And he was collecting waste all through Accra. And not just collecting the waste, processing the waste into other valuable ends. So these are some of the things we will do, in addition to plugging leakages, because the automation will help you or enable you plug leakages. The whole idea is to make sure that the system of revenue collection is less dependent on individuals. So these are some of the areas I believe we can emphasize on, because when you take something like the enumeration I talked about, by the time you do enumeration for the 27 local governments in Imo State, you'll find that we'll have a database of running to millions and millions and millions of people who have homes. Even if you are charging them 1,000 naira a month, it's a lot of money for the state. I'll stop at that point.
Thank you very much.
Yes, please. Okay, so we're bringing this to a wind down. And before you give us your final words for today, also would like to look at youth involvement in what you are doing. Is there any space for young people, the Gen Zs, the youths coming up beyond? You talked about the educational sector and how it's all going to be all inclusive, because some people
in the persecution, all right? So